everybody. It's Coffee and Politics Online with Sydney Walker. We're here to discuss the latest bond election with the city of Dallas, specifically focusing on housing. So, you may recognize the face. J.A. Armstrong with Builders of Hope, he's the CEO and president, is back on to discuss a lot of things that have been going on since he's been on the show last talking about housing. And we have a new guest this morning.
Glad to be here. Thank
we
you.
have Bryan Tony of BGT Strategies. So good morning, guys.
Morning.
How are y'all?
I'm doing well.
Doing
well.
great.
Yeah.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. So, everything got passed overwhelmingly. And you know, I have been part of the troublemakers in Dallas. And I want to scrutinize the numbers. I want to scrutinize what the city has done in the past. I want to uncover everything to make sure, number one, we're serving our community, first
Absolutely.
and foremost. And two, you know, south of 30 is lots of opportunity there. And you and I have discussed off and on over the years about housing and the look of housing in my neighborhood. And I have seen some of your bills, and they're very nice. Great kitchens, because kitchens sell houses, along with nice bedrooms and master suites. So, do update us on what's been going on with Builders of Hope, and then we'll kind of start jumping into the bond, even though we know that the money hasn't been approved yet, but the voters agreed that we want this money for housing. So update us on Builders of Hope.
Sure. So thank you so much for inviting me back. It's been so long. I thought I messed up the first time. So I'm glad to be back. But it's been about 5 years, and since that, Builders of Hope has expanded exponentially. We've grown in units that we produce, in territory that we produce in, and services that we provide. We've become a Dallas County CHODO. So we have our first workforce development project in Farmers Branch. Just got the appraisals back. Those homes we're selling for the low threes, and the appraisals came back right at $500,000. So
Wow.
It really proves that our model does work even at the workforce level. We have projects in Southern Dallas, land opportunity, and regarding the community development programming, we have just released and launched, the magazine reported it, our Property Tax Relief Fund, which is a program and tool within our anti-displacement initiative. We are completing that rough draft of that toolkit that will be adopted by city staff to prevent displacement in the future. And we've done everything from the West Dallas Community Vision Plan to public safety in Mill City to a home repair program that preserved $1.5 million in existing affordable housing stock. So we've been busy. We've been extremely busy.
You guys have been very, very busy. Now, I do know about the tax relief because that is definitely something that's important to my community. And Queen City has just been recognized, was it's going to be accepted as a national landmark.
Yeah, historic.
Yay! Yes. Because as my son calls them, Minecraft houses are kind of taking over, and we do want to maintain some of the character and the history there, but also the long-term residents that choose to stay there, me included. We don't want to get displaced just because, you know, there are tons of houses being built that are, you know, far more expensive than what we've ever seen in South Dallas. So I definitely want to go more into the tax relief. So explain a little bit more about that for our viewers.
Yeah, so the property tax assistance program essentially pays incremental increases in legacy residences' property taxes. So in 2017, West Dallas residents saw a 333% increase in their property taxes. They saw it again in 2020. Then they saw it again in 2023. And so all because of the bridge that happened in 2015. So we know the appraisal district is typically a couple of years behind. And so essentially what we have seen is that because of these public investments, that there has been just a rise in property value, and which has caused, significant burden for legacy residents. And this is not just a West Dallas story. It's a South Dallas story. It's, yeah, we've seen it in State and Thomas and Little Mexico and Elm Thicket and Hamilton Park. And so what we really hope to do is create a model for how do you deal with neighborhood change. How do you assure that legacy residents are able to remain in place? And really, it's about giving them the dignity of a choice, right? Because for some, it is better to sell and maybe take the proceeds, which is what we call economic mobility. Take the equity that you had in your home and go and move somewhere else. But we want to give residents the dignity of the choice. And so the PTAP program is just another example of why it's important to support programs like the bond election, because we've seen other cities utilize bond dollars for innovative and creative ways. We can look at the city of San Antonio that passed a historic housing bond specifically for housing and was able to break that money up into different programs like down payment assistance, like home repair, like new construction. And so that's the power and the impact that a bond could have, is that you can really be innovative with bond dollars. Bond dollars are a little bit less restrictive than federal dollars, and federal dollars is typically how the city has previously used, what the city has previously used to do affordable housing. And we know sometimes they got in trouble doing that. And so we really want to uplift, whenever we have a bond election, we want to uplift that and push it hard, because it really is a way to produce more units and to protect and preserve existing legacy residents.
That's really good to know. So I will definitely check out what's going on in San Antonio. And talking about the bond election, so Bryan, the Dallas Housing Coalition,
Yep.
nicely displayed on his T-shirt, was asking for $200 million initially.
Yes.
So I can see the hesitation with council going for that large of a price tag. But why that number? Were you trying to fix all the problems? Was that still just one phase, that if we got all of this money, we can do this, and then phase 2 would be another area that needed to be funded, and then keep going until you say that you've accomplished providing housing that doesn't eat up more than half of someone's income?
Right. Well, that's the goal, right? Is that we don't want people spending 30% of their income, 50% of their income on housing, whether they're renting, whether they're trying to purchase a home and pay that mortgage. That's what we consider housing cost burden. Many of our residents are housing cost burden in Dallas County. We have a huge affordable housing need in Dallas, so the number that we chose, $200 million, was based on that need. There's 33,600 units missing for people making between half of the area median income. Those are folks who are working 2 jobs, single parent households.
So we're talking about people that really are making less than $65,000 a year.
The median income in Dallas right now is $58,000. So to afford a home, the average home price is $405,000. You need to be earning $135,000 in combined income or on your own. So we're not there yet. Economically, we have a lot of people who are trying to make ends meet, and in order for developers, nonprofit, for-profit, to sell a home at a lower price point or rent a home at a lower market price, because Dallas right now is 58, 59% renting, those developers need a little bit of a small subsidy, that last dollar in, to make that home affordable. And whether you're renting or a homeowner, either way, you need to be able to have some stability. And
Right.
that opens up doors for your children's education, for your family's health. The economic savings that your family has when you're not spending on housing means you can afford transportation, you can put food on the table, and
Yes.
continue to invest. So
Yes.
it was a large ask, as you mentioned. We need 100,000 new or refurbished homes by 2033, according to city staff. They laid out how we could build that number of units
Okay.
in a city presentation last April. And so we took that $200 million number. We knew we weren't necessarily going to end up all the way there, but this is the first time that Dallas has invested in housing through a bond. We're proud of our work, and we need more.
Well, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
getting it on the agenda and
Yeah.
approved by council for the residents and the citizens of Dallas to vote on it. So they
Thank you.
unanimously did that. So obviously we recognize the need. So I do want to kind of go back on renting, okay? Because I have seen plenty of developments here in Dallas where they're supposed to put, affordable units, workforce units, and okay, look, I'm just going to use easy numbers here. 500 units. I'm big time developer, and
Sure.
I am going to develop this new apartment complex. And typically, the number of affordable units in comparison to that 500 is like less than 5 units. That does not help. And I don't want to give you any money to subsidize for 5 units. Like, really? Are we talking that you need almost 100 units to defer the cost on 5 units? I mean, I understand business and the math, but help me understand that.
Depends on the model.
Yeah, the city, there has been units being produced out of the housing department.
More than 5.
Both from, yeah, more than 5. Both from the Housing Finance Corp, with which issues tax credits for low-income housing tax credit deals. Both from the PFC, which is the Public Facilities Corp,
Which is 50-50
which
market
is
rate.
50-50, 50% market rate, 50%, 80% and below. And then from TIF dollars, right? Developments receive TIF dollars, and when they receive those TIF dollars, they are supposed to set aside a certain portion,
Also, let people know what TIF means.
tax increment financing. And then from just development, right, which is bond dollars from previous elections. The problem is that we don't income target our funding enough. So what you have, like in the case of the PFC, 50% of the units go to market rate, 50% of the units are at 80% and below. Now, if I'm a developer,
Right.
if I'm looking at that rule and I'm saying 80% and below, or below, I'm probably gonna put in my pro forma that most of the units are at that 80% level, which is what we've seen in the PFC deals. The problem with that is that rents at the 80% level are the median rents for market rate rents. So we're not really digging into the need, because the PFC deals, which is producing one of the largest, producing the most units.
Yeah.
In fact, they have 12 deals in the pipeline. It's not, and that's what CPAL's report, the housing need report, says, is that we aren't producing enough units for the families that need it the most, the families that are 60% and below the area median income. These are the individuals that work at
Deeply affordable.
the deeply affordable, those that work at the local grocery store, the administrative assistant at the hospital, the person that handles your food. These are essential workers, people that we need to make up our economy, people that again, like Bryan said, are working 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet. We have to make sure that we're building a city that creates places and spaces for them.
So to all my people that say, get another job, it's not just that easy polishing your resume and just going out and getting another job. I'm a former dietitian. When I got my first job, I was barely making $15 an hour. I went into a specialty, diabetes education. Okay, I started making $17 an hour. Whoop-de-doo. It was still $2,000 I was bringing home every month, and I had a roommate.
No, minimum wage hasn't changed. Incomes haven't kept up with housing.
No,
by any
not
means.
at all. And that is ridiculous notion for, when I hear people say, well, just get another job, go back to school. Well, it would be that nice to just, I'm just going to go back to school. I'm going to become an attorney or a physician or, a software engineer developer so I can go and make more money. But honestly, to be comfortable these days, you're having to be well into the six-figure range, not just barely 100,000 to 125. You need to be, 175, 200 now.
All right, just to speak to that fact, and what you're saying, the technical definition for it is shrinking affordability. And we've recently put out statistics from our displacement study on that shrinking affordability in Dallas. For renters, the average Dallas household, 10 years ago, they could afford 50% of the rent. Right now, that 50% is 30%. If we don't do anything, that will translate into the next 10 years, only 20% of the multifamily rental housing supply that's available will the average Dallas household be able to afford. For home ownership, those statistics are more stark, right? So 10 years ago, the average Dallas household could afford about 40% of the housing stock. That has shrunk to 12%. If we do nothing,
DC workshop study?
no, that's the BOH study.
BOH? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and 12%.
Yeah.
But
So
if we do
that's
nothing,
10 years ago, 5 years ago,
Yeah.
present day.
yeah, and if we do nothing, it's 2%. So you're talking about, when we say the average household, we're talking about the median. So that means that half of our workforce can only afford 2% of the for the current 12%, and for home ownership, but for rental, it's 20%. And so there is shrinking affordability in Dallas, and Dallas is slowly becoming like a San Francisco, and so that's why it's very, very important. And Bryan talked about the number, the 200 number. It's important because San Antonio, they passed a $150 million bond package for housing alone.
3 to 4 different bonds for housing.
Austin
Most
has-
recently,
yeah.
350 million. So,
So Dallas is behind.
it's a matter of priorities as a city. If we're going to make Dallas an affordable city that is inclusive, that has our longtime multi-generational residents continue to contribute to our economy. Cities like Houston have had more black residents move into the city of Houston. We want to maintain that culture, that character of Dallas. That's what makes us a unique city.
And you're a transplant.
I'm a Tarrant County born and raised.
Okay.
And I've been in Dallas living and working for the last 8 years.
Okay.
So,
Well, Funky
North
Town,
Texas,
Funky
yeah.
Town is different than
it is. I understand.
than Dallas.
For
We like
sure.
to think that we're so sophisticated here.
But we're a metropolitan area, right?
Yes, we are.
We're about to pass Chicago as the third largest metro area, right behind LA and New York. So as a city, we're continuing to grow. More people are moving here for quality of life, for cost of living. We're fortunate, but we, like James was talking about, don't want to take our current situation for granted and end up in a worst case where no one can afford to live here.
And the pandemic really, opened a lot of people's eyes. Unfortunately, many of us already knew what the pandemic just shined a bright light on.
Absolutely.
And so I do want, and you will be more versed on this, with the multifamily bond program. So we had 116 million of bond money in the last 15 years. So from 2010, where
Housing finance.
are the
Corporate.
where's the result of that investment? And I want people to understand that yes, these are large sounding numbers, but when you were talking about that shrinking affordability, making sure that people have the dignity of their choice to stay or leave, being able to have adequate housing for your family as well as yourself if you're an individual, where's the progress from that? Because I'm assuming that the ask for the 200 million was kind of built off of some of what was not met with the 116 million.
So I would encourage everyone to read my article in Dallas Morning News on the bond package.
Yes, tell everyone.
Okay, so announced first on Coffee, Tea, and Politics. Tomorrow I'll be officially announced as a contributing columnist for the Dallas Morning News, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, excited about that. It's a huge responsibility because we have a lot of narrative work to do, right?
Yes.
We have to correct the narrative on a lot of different things so that we can progress. I encourage people to read that article because it talks about how Dallas is really losing. That by 2040, Fort Worth will outpace Dallas in population growth.
Really?
Yes,
That's what the trends are.
that's what the trends are.
haven't grown.
Yeah. So Bryan just gave off numbers, but that's the metroplex, and it's really like Dallas has this complex. Like we like to take credit for all the good things that are happening around us, but we really don't put on the big boy pants and do the right thing so that we can be the leader at the table. Not only will Fort Worth surpass us, but when you think about just population growth in Dallas, it's been flat, and in some cases, it's decreased. So Dallas is losing people, and so you talk about, where has the money gone? And we know that based upon, you can pull, I think in February or January, the housing department, they gave a performance metrics report to the housing committee and talked about where those units are going. They're mostly going in the southern sector, especially those PFC deals. And so, but when you think about like where the bond money goes, 200 million is not a hard ask when you consider the disparity that exists in southern Dallas alone. Because when you go into southern Dallas, you're not just building housing from the ground up, because you have to deal with the ground. You have to deal with environmental issues. As a developer, I understand this. You have to deal with the infrastructure. Sometimes there are no streets, there are no sidewalks. And this is because of years of historic disinvestment, years of, looking over southern Dallas and pouring money into the north. And we've heard the statistic that southern Dallas makes up almost 50% or more of our land mass, but only 20% of our tax base. So that.
Yes. And I definitely want to talk about that because my kiddos helped Paula Blackman during her campaign, and that was during the pandemic time.
Yeah.
And it was a stark reality to go from the edge of her district, Casalinda, and then there's Buckner Terrace, which is my district, District 7.
Yeah.
And you could tell there was a huge difference in the quality of the neighborhood, the businesses, and so with that ask and your housing coalition, what are you guys doing to help those transitions be less dark?
Right. Well, we're trying to build a broad, diverse coalition. We now have over 215 members as an organization. We have individuals, neighborhood associations, church, faith-based, for-profit, nonprofit, everybody involved who children and families are affected by housing. So we did, I think, a great job kind of building it from the ground up, but still have more work to do at the grassroots level to reach our neighbors and our residents. So we're looking at planning a housing summit this November. We're looking to have more neighborhood level kind of dinner table conversations. We have a couple panels coming up on June 12th and June 25th that people can learn about the housing trends, how we can close those gaps. Stephanie Champion of Builders Hope will be on the June 25th panel. So I encourage everybody to follow us on our social media. They can join on DallasHousingCoalition.com and be a part of the change.
Oh, great. Thank you, Bryan. So if you're just tuning in, I'm here with James Armstrong and Bryan Tony, and we're discussing, the bond money and housing and the need here in the city of Dallas. So, one thing that just stands out is, you know, how much of a need there is, and really I think because of all of us troublemakers, along with white metropolis and the accommodation, that people are really starting to understand how south of 30 has been de-invested. And I will say, just from my own house and understanding that in South Dallas, plats were sold to black families, and a lot of times they were building those houses themselves. My great grandfather is one that built his house, and so
Yeah.
to see that we're really pushing for more affordability. I have been seeing more houses being built, especially in my neighborhood, that don't necessarily fit this bill of affordable housing. What do we do as a community for those? Because now they're starting to sit empty. They're not moving, they're not selling as quickly as they did before. So how do we address that?
Sure.
So we've all heard about Ford Dallas, and I mean, if you really wanted the tea, that's what we should have been talking about. But
It's tea time.
Well, it's a completely separate show.
We might need another show, but
okay,
we
so
should get into it.
yeah, so Ford Dallas, right, is a vision for the city, and I'm going somewhere quickly. It's a vision, right? It's a planning document that speaks to a vision for our city. The conversation of density has taken over, but it's really about what do we want the future of our city to look like, okay? The plan is important first, because once you have the plan can inform the Dallas Development Code. And when you talk about the Dallas Development Code, then you get into things like design. Then you get into things like how do we bring about overlays for neighborhoods. You're right. What's being built, especially in West Dallas, South Dallas, it looks nothing like the community. And really, it spurs displacement.
Yes, it does.
It does, yeah. It spurs displacement because whenever you have a wood frame, 3-bedroom, sometime 1 or 2 bath house next to a monstrous, 2-story big box Mac mansion, you're going to disrupt the flow of the neighborhood. You're going to increase values, and it ultimately it's horrible for the neighborhood. So we have to do a better job as a city as putting guardrails on what is being built, specifically in neighborhoods like Queen City, historic neighborhoods that have established architecture, that have established neighborhood flow. And so my hope, and I've talked to the new planning director, and she has promised that this will be the next step, that after Ford Dallas is passed, we get that done, that we will look at how do we create design elements and guardrails and guidelines, really, for these neighborhoods to assure that developers aren't coming in to build what they want, taking their profits and leaving.
Right. It's a huge market problem like that you're seeing right now in Dallas, where those types of homes are being built that don't fit in with the stable neighborhood,
The
with the
aesthetics.
character. We acknowledge the history. We respect single-family neighborhoods here in Dallas. But there are 3 populations that are at risk, and Jennifer and Hell at Rio Planning has been talking about this a lot. Ford Dallas is important because not only do we need to encourage more housing in our high opportunity areas that have amenities, that have access to schools and parks and grocery stores and everything that a family needs to thrive. We can't be exclusive and say no more housing can be built here.
Right.
That's not good. We can't concentrate affordable housing only in Southern Dallas with more low-income tax credit deals. We understand that. So those are another different set of circumstances that we need to figure out how to allow more housing that fits into Southern Dallas, that is market rate, that is more gentle density. And then there's the folks in the middle who are at risk of displacement, and those West Dallas and South Dallas neighborhoods that because we're not able to do housing at either end of this spectrum. It's getting pushed up where the land is the cheapest, and
Right. Yes.
they can only afford to build luxury, either multifamily or single-family housing, and like we've discussed, is not affordable to your average Dallas resident. So
Right.
this Forward Dallas will hopefully be a vision for a city that's more inclusive, that kind of I just see it as kind of like a funnel, and all this pressure, development pressure, needs to be dispersed across the city instead of where right now it's really concentrated in those areas where you can only build affordable, like.
But that's been
Cheap
part of
land.
the problem is NIMBY. I don't
Yeah.
want it in my neighborhood, for those of y'all who don't know what NIMBY is. Because yes, it needs to be spread out. Humans disappoint me sometimes, but that's a whole nother topic and show.
No, I mean, you're right.
Yes. And it would be nice, because I remember West Dallas and South Dallas, from the 70s and the 80s, and how things started to change in the 90s. You talked to me years ago about, the aesthetics and shotgun style houses. And I was kind of like, And we have them. And we have shotgun houses. That is something that is very much from Louisiana, and for people who migrated over after Jim Crow. So
We've had it in Dallas before. Like we've
Yes.
had duplexes and
Well,
back to town.
Colonial Hill
Yeah.
is riddled with duplexes.
Right.
Because if you know anything about the history of Dallas, the Jews moved into South Dallas from the Cedars, and the workers stayed in those duplexes. And you can still see some of the architecture in Dallas, in South Dallas, that tells that story. But, I am a romanticist, and I would love to see those little houses with the 2 doors, because that was air circulation design.
Interesting.
And I never forget my great aunt. She had an attic fan, and I would notoriously hit the wrong switch to turn the front light and turn that attic fan on. You hear this whoosh.
That's awesome.
So, as I said during the landmark meeting this past Monday, that we do need progress. Like I said, I'm a romanticist, so I want to keep part of that culture and that history and that look there. And I'm so sorry that I told you X-nay on the houses.
One of your proposals?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that you need diversity of housing stock.
Yeah.
Because one, that's what we call missing middle, right?
Or it's a starter home.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
I
you
live
need-
in a townhome.
Yeah,
an
you need-
attached
you need
single
diversity.
family townhome.
Yeah, you need diversity. You need the shotgun houses. And you need, sometimes a family would like, kids, you need, the 4-bedroom, 2-story. Or sometimes you need the 0 lot line, townhome. The thing is that how do you build out our housing stock or build out our city in a way where everyone has a place and a space? That's it.
Choice, access, like
Yeah.
what works for you
Go
might be
ahead.
different than what works for me, but
Right.
we have that decision, and people are coming and going, and hopefully the people want to stay and live here in Dallas.
Right.
So I
And
love it here, and I want to be able to afford it, and I have housemates to help pay my mortgage, and I don't need a front
Yes.
yard or backyard in my stage of life right now. We have aging populations who want to age in place. It's about all incomes, all stages of life who deserve stable, quality, affordable housing.
Yes, because I'm a Gen Xer, so we remember all of our elders aging at home.
Yeah.
We didn't send them off to a nursing home. I have an aunt. She's aging at home. She lives with me. So that is something that is, we are very accustomed to that. And that was one of the beautiful things of growing up in a community like South Dallas. Was, houses didn't always look the same. They were different. And you had, various families and community members there. So it's great to hear that you guys are doing this kind of work.
Thank you.
And Forward Dallas, I do invite you all back to come and talk about that. Councilman West talked about a meeting that's coming up this month in his district regarding it, and I plan to attend because although south of 30 has been de-invested, Bishop Arts is not an area that is de-invested, and also I would say, well, now West Dallas is not de-invested in. So, homelessness also was included in this. So,
Sure.
how are we addressing that? Because we've had programs that weren't shelter based. Are they fitting into how do we get them into permanent housing and part of that affordability?
All right, I'll take a crack at it.
Great.
I think first, I mean, homelessness is an affordable housing problem. It's a system where you have people who are one crisis away from being homeless. They might lose a job, they might have a health care emergency, who are trying to make ends meet, and then all of a sudden, they fall into homelessness. Housing Forward, the Continuum of Care have done a great job of actually reducing homelessness numbers. I know people are concerned, they might not see the visibility of it, but we are making progress by building more permanent supportive housing, but through nonprofit partnerships, Catholic Housing Initiative, St. Jude's, Salvation Army. A lot of people are working together to reverse this trend. And Proposition I, which was in the bond program, had about $19 million in there for homelessness. We had $20 million in 2017. And so we've had some learning lessons. They've had some problems, purchasing properties, and the city is now taking the approach like, okay, we're not the developer. Let's find people who are and who can provide those wraparound services and build permanent supportive housing. Because that's the long-term answer is like you want somebody who, once they become homeless, you get them back on their feet as soon as possible. HUD recognizes us now as ending veteran homelessness. The solution to homelessness is affordable housing, so we have to keep investing in it and make it a priority. I think everybody, that's one of the things that most of City Council agrees on is an issue, and we just need to double down on our investments.
I definitely agree with that because I've seen homelessness just change so much in Dallas from the encampments, over in my neighborhood to way back when the World Cup was coming here, and the encampments that were on the Freeway 30, and how we just kind of swept them away so visitors to the city wouldn't see them. And we're not divergent. We don't have factionless people that we're just kind of letting them roam and not do anything with them. So it's great to hear that, we're addressing it. It's still a small contribution. But the biggest thing that I find as a challenge with the affordability is what are we doing to bring jobs back into Dallas? I'm in IT. I have finally got an IT job that is close to my house, so I'm not having to drive to Frisco or Grapevine.
For sure. It's a better. You don't want those commutes.
No, do not like those commutes. So what are we doing to bring more jobs and opportunities for our folks that are lower on the pay scale, to find better opportunities for that shrinking to not shrink?
Well, I hate to be repetitive, but it goes back to housing. When companies come into a city, they're going to look at two things. They're going to look at the workforce, like the education level of the workforce. Three things: education level of the workforce. Does the city have the workforce, existing people there to support the job?
Degrees, certifications.
The degrees, certification, the college system. They're going to look like, in order to attract people, how is the school district, right? How are the ISDs? What does the private institutions look like? What does the matriculation from high school to local colleges, all of that make up? And then, lastly, they're going to look at affordable housing? Does the city have a system or ecosystem that can produce housing for my workforce? And so it's kind of like three buckets. And so in order to continue to attract people, corporations, we have to make sure that, again, we're creating spaces and places for their workforce to reside. Nobody, I mean, it's a proven fact that people come into Dallas to work and then they leave. Yeah, it's a proven fact. And so you also have people, like you said, coming that live in Dallas that go north, way, way north.
They buy a
And
home
so,
in the suburbs, right?
exactly, yeah, yeah. So it goes back to the principles. What I found out, and I'm thinking like maybe I should switch careers and go the city manager route, because I'm fascinated with how you build a city. It's really interesting, right? And you can build it in such a way that it thrives on its own. It's like an organism, right? Like you can build it and you can create systems and ecosystems where the city just grows on its own. It has like this natural growth. Or you can create a city that has barriers to growth. And the question is, how do you remove those barriers so that everyone has a decent quality of life? So you're attracting new business, so that
Entrepreneurs,
so you have
small business.
the entrepreneurship at the grassroots level is growing. People have what I think of a thriving city is a city that has access to economic mobility. That's critically important. Can someone come here with a college degree or not a college degree? Can they start here, and because of the way the city is fixed, can they increase their economic standing? And I really think that is the measure of really a great city.
You said a lot there.
He's been thinking about it. And Dallas, like James said, like we need to have an S on our chest. We need to have a big D on our chest. We have a new economic development corporation being built up and headed by Linda McMahon, someone I respect, someone I worked for at the Real Estate Council. They're going to be putting Dallas in a better negotiating standpoint with some of these companies, using some incentives to attract more businesses here. The type of Fortune 500 or however. We want the Toyotas. We want the
right. Because we've seen
State
them
Farm.
go to Plano,
Frisco,
McKinney,
yeah.
Frisco.
It's a competitive environment.
Yes.
But,
and then you have all of this availability in
Right.
southern Dallas, and there are educated degree people
no doubt.
south of 30 that can work at these companies. They come. And I love how you said that, you can have a city where it just grows on its own, but that infrastructure has to be there. And so we did not discuss the infrastructure part of the housing bond, because I have always been blown away and amazed by mud taxes and people buying places up in Denton County and Prosper and all those places where I did not know
Yeah.
that you could get an extra bill to pay for the sewer and the streets and the curbs and all and lights and everything on top of your property taxes to maintain, where you're having to pay an additional $20,000-$30,000 for. It blows my mind. So we're investing in our infrastructure. What exactly does that mean, investing in the infrastructure for housing?
So I would encourage you to look at and read Barbara Mensker's report, Infrastructure Disparity Report. She's an SMU professor that really dug deep into the need for infrastructure investment in Southern Dallas. If you don't have infrastructure, it's almost like you're intentionally causing a part of your city to die off. And that's what we've seen. Like, think of this. Think of infrastructure is like the vein. Infrastructures are the veins.
Foundation.
That it's the foundation. It's the streets. It's the sidewalks. It's the sewer. It's the water lines. It's the environmental remediation. It's all the basic things that are needed for any type of development. And that's why we often hear let's take on Southern Dallas. Let's grow. We're not even ready yet. We're not ready yet. The infrastructure when it comes to. I mean, I was part of it. No, I was part of it. No, I was part of it. But it was a marketing.
It created a conversation.
Yeah, it created a conversation. But I'm like, the infrastructure's not there.
The dollars have to follow.
Yeah,
but before that, I mean, we didn't have an equity plan in place. We didn't have a sidewalk master plan. TC Broadnax did put together a lot of comprehensive strategic plans that it's up to us as viewers, as advocates, residents.
Right, to push our council members to say, enact this.
Yeah, because there's a $1.25 billion bond.
Right.
$500 million went to streets.
Yes.
$300+ million went to parks. Housing got our piece of 82. Arts and culture got 72, and libraries got 40 some odd million. So those are forms of infrastructure. It's a big investment as a city, and they can bring about good change if we do it correctly, if we do it equitably and efficiently. So that's what the next step is. Is also just monitoring the city and holding them accountable. Because that was what we ran into with the housing. Argument was like Dallas hasn't had a great track record, but we are improving, and I have full faith and confidence in the Housing Neighborhood Revitalization Department, led by Cynthia Rogers-Ellickson. Our new Planning and Urban Design Director, Emily Liu, is fantastic, coming from Louisville, Kentucky. So we have a lot of, I think, hope in the future of Dallas.
Okay, so even though TC Broadnax may not have been the most favorite city manager for a lot of people in the city of Dallas, he did some good things. He tried to steer the ship for Dallas in a better direction, for sure. So do take your time. I mean, because when I was prepping for this show, poor Bryan was like, I just moved here in 2016. There's some of this, and I'm like, don't worry, James got it. I know.
I've read up. Fill in some holes or gaps if I have.
Yes, because James and I have been involved in a lot of this for a very long time, and we've seen the failures, and we see the progress that is coming. So the accountability definitely is there. And y'all have heard me preach about elections have consequences, but it also goes the next level. Keeping track of where those bond dollars are going, because I went back to 2006 on these guys with talking points about where the money has gone. And I don't know, did TC ever get that dashboard really working to show the progress of the bond?
It's online.
It's online?
There's a
okay.
website.
Because I went out there a few times and I really didn't see much for District 7.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I had my Prince moment there looking, District 7. So keep your eyes on what is going on, because I will tell everyone, vote no, 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 because we have to make our elected officials accountable. And I'm not doing it to hurt anything, but start paying attention. I mean, I'm back doing the show live, guys. Come on out. I'm bringing these topics back to you that you need to be informed about. People need to start waking up. These guys have not been involved in this just because it was for poop and giggles. I'm trying to work on my language.
Appreciate that.
You have been involved for a very long time. No. Look, they say we don't crack, okay? If you start, come and see me for the secret, because I have it, okay? I have it. Bryan, if you wanted
oils,
to.
Yeah,
I know, he looks like a kid.
No, I'm good.
You look like a kid with your smile. And
Appreciate
you light up a room with your smile.
Thank you.
But the city has needed so much. And we have seen so much go to North Dallas. And I didn't even think that you could gentrify a gentrified area until Oak Lawn. Yes. Seeing new things. And I'm talking about like in the Hucknall Street area over in there. I'm not just talking about Turtle Creek Boulevard. Guys, really pay attention. These are advocates here for us in the city. As y'all know, I will connect you all to them. I have them in my phone. They respond. They say, "What's
Absolutely.
up, Sydney? You know, haven't heard from you in a while." You know, they are my pulse. Then I check in with to find out what's going on. And then I'm sitting here with a new contributor with the Dallas Morning News.
Yeah.
Yes, you
We
will.
will do a great
Do
job.
it justice. No, you make up an interesting point, and I'm so glad that you're back doing this because you have been always able to get to the bottom of it, right? We know, and
A lot of noise.
yeah, there's a lot of noise.
You gotta cut through it.
People don't like to read, and so that's why programs like Coffee and Politics are essential. They are crucial to the progression of our city, to informing the residents, to letting them know what is the truth about a matter and how should they respond. We have great opportunity. You're right. I've been at it for a while. I feel like I've been at it for a long time. But never, as a native of Dallas, never have I seen such emphasis, such focus on making things right, on bringing equity, on how do we develop Southern Dallas, how do we bring affordable housing, how do we decrease homelessness. I've never seen in the city. You've known. I mean, housing before used to be like you used to get like it was the bottom of the totem pole. I mean it was not important. And so I'm grateful that we're now in a point in our city where these important topics are being discussed and there's bringing attention and there's money being added to solve some of these problems.
Investing in ourselves. Yeah, and that's very important.
We can't afford to ignore it. I mean, stick our heads in the sand or pretend like it'll get better if we don't talk about it, if we don't, show up at City Hall. I think it's going to be a major campaign issue next year in the spring election. So I encourage everybody to, ask their council members, how are they spending their housing dollars, homelessness, Prop I money. There was some discretionary funding put in for economic development. So,
yes.
It's going to be I think it's the next decade, like ahead of us. Housing is the number one issue that we have to figure out as a city.
Well, I think we rested on our laurels because of the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, what happened with the growth, the expansion of the city, and then transportation into Southern Dallas, and then, the migration north, and seeing that happen. And it's unfortunate that we had to come here to this point to finally say, hey, we're doing a disservice because housing is part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it is at the bottom of the pyramid. And without those basic needs being taken care of, instability. And it's not just instability for you as an individual, it's an instability for the city, for the county, becomes the state, becomes the nation.
Right.
And Dallas isn't unique with having this housing issue. It's across the entire nation.
For sure.
So, oh gosh, so time here. Final closing.
Closing comments?
Again, I just want to reiterate the importance of platforms like Coffee and Politics. We are in a very interesting and dynamic and exciting time in our city. And what we do for the next 10 years will really tell and craft what city we really are. We either have a choice to rise to the challenge or rest on our laurels and past mistakes and really create that cycle of barriers to economic mobility, creating that disparity to income and wealth, or we can be the city that we say we want to be, where everyone has the potential to thrive financially, where our seniors are able to age in place, where our workforce can work and live where they work and play, and really to be the big boy at the table of the Metroplex. Dallas is slipping. And unless we change our course of action and do better, we're going to be the big boy by name, but not by action. So we have to be sure that we rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Bryan?
Hopefully folks at home know James is also a pastor, so he
Yes.
can preach. I second and echo everything that he just said. Just continue to stay informed, continue to show up. Would love to have more people involved in this. I don't want to. It's a fight, but like just in this work.
Yes.
Because it's supremely helpful. Like there's so much that goes into housing and making sure people have stability. It's not just the construction side. It's also the finding a unit. It's also the title clearing process, the property
Yes,
taxes.
permits and
It's a
everything.
lot, and we understand that. We're trying to break it down and make it easily digestible. So please come give us feedback. Tell us how we can do better. It's takes all of us, and like James mentioned, we want to be that inclusive city. We want to be a place where everybody can thrive. So follow us, Dallas Housing Coalition, and thank you, Sydney,
Yes.
for having us. This is a great conversation, and really
Thank you
appreciate
guys for tuning in and coming to be on the show your first time. So
Yeah.
hopefully you will come back.
Would love
and
to.
James, welcome back. So everybody, next Saturday, I will be joined by some community members, Uncle JoJo, Antoine Lucky, aka Bruce Wayne, and Antoine Love, to talk about the violence in the Black community and what is going on, as we have had recent shootings that have been very heartbreaking. So make sure that you like, share, follow the page, share the videos, pass them along to anyone that you feel needs to have the education. Watch it yourself. You can listen to it while you're in the car, so you don't have to actually look at us talking here to get informed, because we are our society and we have the choice of making the society what we want it to be. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we will see you guys next Saturday.
Awesome.